Icky knows. The night after the scav den raid. Itchy was drinking. What else could he do? He just made more eddies in a few hours of work than he had in any span of days working for Shobo Summer. But he knew he couldn't do the same job that Motoko had done. He talked to the older Tiger Claws when he was playing Gopher, or doing odd jobs for them. They often liked to talk about previous gigs they had done, of the firefights they had been in. So he knew exactly how dangerous it was to hit a scav den. Sure, if you were properly borged out, you could do it. Scavs often weren't the best fighters, or the best equipped. But they were all armed, all ready to murder you. Gunfights sounded cool until you were in one and the other guy was firing back. "What's up, kid? You've been glaring at the bottom of your drink since you got back," one of the very same older Tiger Claws asked as he plopped his can of Asahi on the table beside Itchy. "Seriously, you look like you're going to kill your beer." "Hatake. I took a gig from a friend today. And..." "You lost someone? Went bad?" No, the opposite. It was over before I even got there. I was just the cleanup crew. Nothing more." "Huh? So you made some easy eddies? What's got you down?" "The friend that called me into the job. She's... It sounds so stupid. I'm jealous. She went from being in the hospital to running jobs that I couldn't pull off. She is younger than me. How does a 14-year-old clear an entire scav den by herself? I don't get it." "By herself? You sure? That's..." "Yeah, I'm sure. She didn't even call us in until it was all over. We are supposed to be her chums. I mean, if she said she was going to try and hit a scav den, I would have had Hiromi sit on her, because it's dumb." "Oh, I get it. She did something impossible. Something beyond what you think you could do." "Yeah," he grumbled, glaring at his beer. "Well, kid, I'll be honest. A kid your age? A 14-year-old able to do a job like that? That ain't normal. She's an edge runner for sure." "I know. My goal was to be an edge runner, not her. Motoko never wanted that before, and now? She is already doing it." "Don't be stupid, kid. You don't want to be an edge runner. They burn bright, but only a quarter as long. Your chum? She'll be dead before she's 20. Hell, if she is already doing this shit? Before 16. Don't live your life like that, Itchy. Burn slower, and longer. Trust me. As a guy in his 40s, I've seen a lot of chums, men and women better than me at fighting, but also better than me at dying." Hatake offered, taking a swig of his beer. "I don't think I can help it. Feeling jealous." "Yeah, well, just remember, becoming an edge runner has a cost. That level of skill. That willingness to put your life on the line?" Hatake shook his head. "If she is your chum, then do your best to help out, but make sure you know the line. Edge runners don't always realize what is dangerous for normal people. The closest I ever got to getting flatlined was when I backed up an edge runner chum. Got shot up for my trouble. What if I want to do that? Become an edge runner? Make it big, and prove that I'm not just a gopher?" Hatake sort of nodded his head for a moment before sighing. "Then be ready to be used up, kid. Used like a tool. Used as a weapon. Being a gopher ain't bad. At least you know you'll come back home after a day's work, instead of being thrown into the trash because it's convenient." Hatake sounded like this advice was personal. That this advice came from experience. Ichi wasn't sure if he could accept it though. To give up on his dream of making it big. Of becoming more. I grunted as I heard the trucks drive off. This storm was starting to piss me off. With shaky hands I reached into one of my thigh pouches and pulled out a Mac stock. I had found a few of them in the scav den, and since I now knew how useful they were standard kit. I huffed it, and a moment later my body didn't feel like I was dying. I grunted as I sat up, crawling over to a nice rock that I could rest against as I caught my breath. Getting thrown from a fast-moving car into the desert? Not fun. Smashing into a rock on the way? Ow. Getting shot again? Double ow. I winced as I reached behind me and felt the hole in my netsuit. Yeah, the bullet had gone right through. Fuck. I was gonna have to start crafting soon just to repair my clothes. Why did people keep shooting me? I sighed, coughing a bit at just how much dust was swirling around me. I could barely see through how thick it was getting. And it was starting to get hard to breathe. I rose up unsteadily, and then even less steadily as I nearly fell. My leg wasn't great. I messed it up when I went flying from the car. Worse, the wind was getting strong. I fought against it as I climbed back up the hill towards Scorpion's car. Might be able to take shelter inside until this storm was over. I clambered up the hill and just at the top I tripped. Coughing a bit, I pulled myself up and realized I had tripped on a corpse. Oh yeah. The guy I stabbed. Instantly I noticed something I needed. Rising up and heading back to grab the goggles from his head. After a minute of struggling to get them clear enough of dust to see, I put them on, and while it wasn't great, at least I could open my eyes. Then I grabbed the guy's dust mask. It was gross. But as I put it on, I could breathe a lot easier. I continued searching him. Gotta get loot after all. I smiled as I found my knife. That went into my sheath. A little more digging, I did find my pistol as well. I was honestly super relieved. That had been a gift from June. I didn't want to lose it. Okay. I could see, breath, and I had a weapon. Let's get to work. Scorpion's car was a wreck. Even if I did have the key shard, I wouldn't get it moving. I sighed. As I looked outwards, I knew the general path. My eyes' GPS meant I knew exactly the direction to get back to the wayhouse. So since I didn't find anything of value, I started walking, trudging through the desert. First I would get to the wayhouse. Then I would start searching for the Raffan base. I had considered just sitting tight, hitchhiking back to the city. But I had been hired for a job. The Solos guide had mentioned that some gigs would blow up in your face. That you would have to make a decision about what kind of solo you wanted to be. The sort that once the job gets out of control walks away. The ones that lived long lives, but were never respected. Or the one that when shit blew up they stood up and got to work. Considering how pissed I was? Yeah, I think I'm the kind that got to work. It took almost an hour to reach the wayhouse. Trudging against dust and sand up and over dunes. I noticed that the trailer with the motorcycle that was what caused all of this was gone. Connor was going to be answering some questions next time I saw him. I hauled myself inside. Taking a moment to pull off the dust mask and the goggles, I headed into the bathroom and found the sink. Running water. Thank God. I washed my face, allowing my eyes to stop aching from all the dust for the first time in over an hour. Then I washed the goggles and the dust mask as best I could. Drying them a bit, I wiped them down and put them back on. I felt like I could actually fight now. I did throw a bandage that I ripped out of an old sheet around my shoulder. Didn't want people to see the hole that was still there, even if it was mostly closed after the max dock. Ow. I was just getting ready to head back into the storm, to stumble around in the direction of where I had seen the sand trails the Raffan vehicles had left as they chased us, but I heard it over the howl of the wind. A car. I slipped into a dark corner, behind the door, Unity ready. The engine cut off, and I could hear cursing, but I didn't hear the engine start again. Instead I heard it. Someone coming up to the door. Someone opening the door. Someone stumbling inside. Someone familiar. Fucking Storm. Fucking Frank. My bike. Bastard clept my bike. He moaned as the door closed behind him as he took off a mask and goggles like the set I had, and spat dust out of his mouth. I struck, a kick right to the back of his knee, arm hooked around his own. Ow! My shoulder wasn't happy with the movement. But it worked, sending him slamming into the floor on his back. I settled on his chest, with my Unity pressed against his mouth. What the fuack? He squealed when the barrel of my Unity slipped past his teeth. No talking, I said simply as he stilled. Feeling my gun in his mouth did a great job shutting him up. I have 2 questions for you, Connor. You are going to answer them very clearly, because otherwise you get to repaint the floor. Did you set up Scorpion? I asked as I gently pulled my gun out from his mouth. No. I told him. I told him he was late. If he had shown up at the time I told him, it would have been fine. He was supposed to be here yesterday. Frank and the others were busy. There was a boxing match everyone was watching. But Scorpion was late. All right. I'll give you a pass on that. Next question. Where did they take Scorpion? It's an old gas station nearby. Here. I can send you the location. Just don't kill me. My eyes flashed as I received the text with the GPS coordinates. He was right. It was close. Now get ready, you are giving me a ride. No, he squeaked out. I pushed the barrel of my Unity just a tad deeper against his face. No? I can't. They'll know if I get close. They have sensors all over the desert looking for vehicles. If I bring you close they'll kill us. Both of us. I already need to get out of here. He whined pathetically at me. I sighed. Fine. I stood up and stepped back into the storm, leaving Connor on the floor to his fate. Sure, I could have waited. I could take a nap and get my leg back into shape, but I wasn't sure how long Scorpion had before the Raffen killed him. I don't remember super well the Raffen missions from the game, but I do remember they weren't gentle on their captured people. I didn't have time to take a nap. So I pointed myself towards the GPS marker I set up and started trudging. Hopefully I would actually find them, and not just be led into a trap. I was in luck. The little setup that looked like it used to be a gas station with a few little stores all around it was now covered in Raffenshig markings. Mostly wraith graffitied over the old concrete that I only could barely make out in the storm. I settled against the wall letting myself think this through. I found them. Scorpion was inside, along with a small army of Raffen. Since I was here, alone, with someone I needed to rescue, I had to do this right. The wraith that I had killed before, both the one on the bike that I had blown apart with my baby, which was now long gone. Dang. I just realized my poor HMG was somewhere in the desert. Damn it. I shook it off, focusing back on my current issue. Between the biker and the wraith I had stabbed to death I had leveled up. That meant I had 2 stat and skill points. So I spent them. Cool 8, and Ninjutsu 7. I had been planning on spending my points on intelligence and breach, but in this case, I once more needed stealth on my side. So I dropped both points. I shivered a bit as it felt like my mind grew a little bit colder. No more like I was just that much more capable of ignoring anything but my objective. Pain, emotions, fear. All of it simply frozen solid. I rose up to my feet, ignoring the limp I had been battling with the whole way as I walked around the edge of the brick wall covered in graffiti. I slipped into the compound like a ghost. It was almost startling how simple it all felt. To move without making a sound. The storm which I had been fighting through the entire path was simply accepted. Instead of fighting it, I let it flow through me, helping instead of hindering. My senses felt sharp as I started hunting. I had no idea how many wraiths there were in the compound, so I would simply have to clear them out, one at a time. The first thing I found wasn't a victim. The feeling of my danger sense was what alerted me, told me I was about to be seen. I slipped backwards, instantly looking around the corner of the building I had just walked out from. It was a camera, set up in the ceiling looking out over the center of the little bundle of buildings. I smiled as my eyes shifted to gold. I started breaching. It took a few minutes, but when it was done, I was through. Then I sent my ping quick hack. My eyes shone as I got small little alerts over my HUD telling me general where everyone was. It wasn't like in the game. I wasn't seeing people through walls. Instead it was like a little icon showing me generally where they were. But it didn't matter. I saw enough. The wraiths were all connected to the security system. I could see the few wandering around, but most were bunkered up to wait out the storm. My first victim was quickly chosen. A tarp covering a door to keep the dust out of a smaller room that had their security systems. I peeked in through the window knowing exactly where to best do so to remain unseen. There was one man inside, grumbling to himself about the dust as he watched some TV on one of the monitors. The rest showed only dust. I crawled in without even ruffling the tarp. With Ninjutsu 7, I no longer felt like a kid playing hide and seek. No, I had training. Years of reflexes and instincts, muscle memory and not quite memory, but just an understanding of what to do. The man was eating some instant noodles. I let him finish slurping his last bite, chewing it and swallowing before my knife slipped through his throat. He gurgled weakly for a moment, his arm trying to reach for an alert, or trying to save himself. I didn't let him. 100 ninjutsu XP gained. 500 XP gained. Blade skill level up. Blade 4. Nice. I reached behind my neck and grabbed my connection port. Pulling the cord free, I clicked it into the computer system. Breaching the system directly. It was harder. Breaching a single camera's security was easy. Breaching into an actual security setup. If I hadn't just murdered their security guy, I had a feeling I might not have even succeeded. I could see the computer sending an alert pop up about an intrusion, even as I worked. Luckily there was no one to see the alert. And after a few minutes I was in. Their system was completely under my control. More importantly, I finally got the alert I had been waiting for. Intelligence leveled up. Intelligence 3. Yes. Instantly a demon was uploaded. Something I hadn't even thought of, just an instinctual reflex. It was sent out to all the Wraith attacking their network. Their optics would suddenly have difficulty spotting me as the demon would try to blur me out of their sight. There. I breathed out as I slipped back into the storm. Time to ghost this gig. Dash. Frank Elder. Raph and Shiv, Wraith. This show was dumb. Frank decided as he flicked off the channel. With the storm going on, he had come down to his little underground home away from home. Well, it was just his home now. He stretched. He could hear the storm finally letting up. Might actually be able to get something done today. He rose up from the old beat-up couch that he probably would need to get replaced soon. The bloodstains were getting a little much. Scorpion was still hanging around. He smiled, looking towards the man. He was hanging from his wrists by a set of chains. Hang in there, Scorp. We'll think about reaching out to the older Caldos in a few hours. Maybe. He laughed at his joke as he walked past the man. The glare he was getting for his words caused him to alter his path. A heavy fist into Scorpion's stomach reminded the man that he was a prisoner. Scorpion's heavy cough told him he would need to let up soon. Didn't want to kill the guy. He was a chance for a payday after all. Well, didn't want to kill him yet. If he could work it out, he would get the eddies and kill old Scorpion as well. That would be a nice bonus. There. A reminder of where you are, he told Scorpion, reaching up and slapping his cheeks a bit, laughing as the nomad moaned at Frank's roughness on his bruised face. Feeling a little upbeat at the situation, he walked up the stairs. Sure, Connor had turned out to be a bitch. Dealing with his old family was a big no-no. Especially since he hadn't told Frank. If he had, they could have ambushed Scorpion. Instead they had to chase him down. Losing people, equipment. It was a mess. Oh well. They would get a nice paycheck for ransom, and Connor, well, he had nowhere to go now. The older Caldos wouldn't harbor him, and now the Wraiths would know he was weak. Frank smiled. He would quite enjoy ripping the boy apart. It would be a good way to remind the others not to go against his will. He walked into the upper floor and was surprised no one was around. Harold, where you at? I want that windshield fixed on that Revenant. Harold? He looked around confused. The garage was empty. Harold? He walked out of the building looking around the courtyard. Where the hell is everybody? Hey. I want everyone back to work. These cars are still full of holes, he roared. But other than the wind, no response came back. He drew his overture. The big revolver was a good weapon. The noise and power gave him a certain respect whenever he had to shoot someone acting up. Someone better be on the cameras. He growled, rushing across the dusty courtyard to the security room. He walked in and stopped. David? He called, noticing the body slumped over. He rushed up and saw it. Throat was slit. Fuck. He reached over and hit the alarm button. Instantly a noise echoed through the area. It lasted for a few seconds, more than long enough to alert everyone. But as Frank headed back into the courtyard, nothing happened. He looked around waiting for his men to show up. Slowly he realized there weren't the usual hoots and hollers of his men. No gunfire. Not the sound of engines starting up, or even boots rushing around. It was a ghost town. He jerked around searching for anything. Not a thing moved but the dust. He moved, rushing into the barracks. The boys would be fucking around on some BD again. Surely that was it. He entered into a charnel house. The floor practically pools of blood as 4 of his boys lay dead. Henry was in his bed, BD wreath still active even with his throat opened. Kengo was slumped in his big-ass chair. It was comfortable, and Kango had hauled it across the entire desert on top of his little packrat of a car. Someone had stuffed a screwdriver into his ear. It was still quietly dripping blood down the handle into the growing puddle. The other two were slumped over the back of the couch. He didn't need to look any further. He knew they were dead. Who the fuck was doing this? Sure, the wraiths made enemies, but this was crazy. No one in this desert had this kind of skill. No one took out a room with 4 men without setting off an alarm. That was corpo intelligence type shit. He left the room in a hurry, searching. Every room he came across that was supposed to be occupied was now only occupied by the dead Boomer, the crazy bastard who had been with Frank since the beginning. A friend from his old nomad family that had left right alongside him, and to this day still carried far too many grenades, had his head caved in by the looks of it. A fucking carpenter's hammer stuck in the back of his head. His body slumped over his workbench. His empty workbench. Frank swallowed as he looked around. No one. Who had done this? He was losing his cool. He knew it. His gun was starting to get a little twitchy as he held it out in front of him. Then he came to a decision. Fuck this. He was going to get to his car, and floor it. He would join the other 8th group at the cement factory. Sure, he would have to shut up and take it from that arsehole Hook. But fuck it. Better to lick boots, than get murdered by some Arasaka ninja. They hadn't even hit an Arasaka shipment. He slipped into the garage, breathing out a sigh of relief that his Reaver was still where it should be. His baby was fast. It would get him out of here in a hurry. He was done with this shit show. He made it 3 steps before suddenly gunfire erupted around him. He cursed, ducking down, and was only saved because of the subdermal armor he had chipped in a year back. The bullet that just knocked into his back would have been it. He fired blindly towards where he thought the gunfire came from, his overture barking as he ducked behind the cars deeper into the garage. I don't know who you are, he yelled out as he kept moving. He just needed to get to his car. But I don't want any of it. Whatever you want. Just take it. He crouched down. Not a sound reached him. Fuck, whoever sent some sort of corpo assassin after his gang. Who the fuck did he kill to deserve this? He couldn't think of anything that would bring this level of heat down on him. He slowly snuck around his Reaver. If he could just get in the door. But as he was reaching for the door, a gunshot spark echoed through the garage. The noise made his overture sound like a puppy. He had noticed it. The gunman, a blur in the corner of his eye, and dropped, which was the only reason he was still alive. Boomer's van now had a hole in it that looked like someone shot a sniper rifle at him. Fuck, was that a Booyah? He reached up and fired twice in the direction that he had seen the blur and rushed out of the garage as fast as he could. No way he could get in his Reaver and start it up without that hand cannon blowing a hole through him. He dashed into the rec room. The stupid arcade games giving him a bit of cover as he poked his gun back around wall and fired his last 2 rounds, quickly reloading as he listened for any noise. But there was nothing. Not a sound other than the electronic noises of the arcade machines. Reloaded, Frank stood up and moved towards the window, peeking out through the metal shutters. Nothing. No movement. No sound. He shivered. He just had to draw them away and double back to the car. If he couldn't get out of here, he was dead. He moved out through the building, glad that they had made paths through the stupid shops that used to be here before they took it over. Let them move around without having to go outside during a dust storm. Now it may be saving his life. As he thought that, he heard it. A noise behind him. He turned and fired. Every round slamming through the thin walls towards the arcade room. He had definitely heard something. He once more reloaded, grumbling to himself. Reloading a revolver in the middle of this shit was stupid. He would get a smaller gun when this was over. Ducking through to another shop, he continued moving. Hopefully whoever this cocksucker chasing him down was, they would lose track of him. Although the fact he hadn't even gotten eyes on them yet? Fuck. He crept up to a window to take another peek. But again his dusty little former gas station was quiet. Not a thing moved. And not a soul other than him and this ninja was alive. He hunkered down for a minute, simply staring out the window. Come on, where are they? They had to be somewhere. But Frank couldn't see anything, nothing moved. Then suddenly the roar echoed out. And he yelped. The wall he had been standing against now had a hole in it, and it had nearly blown a hole through him. He started moving again. Fuck. They were definitely tracking him. Probably high-powered optics. Which meant he wasn't going to be able to sneak away. Fine. He called up his Reaver's auto-drive system, and ordered it towards the entrance of their little setup. He was near there now. He would rush into the car and speed off. It had to work. He heard the engine start up with a roar and it started moving, driving out of the garage towards the entrance. Come on faster. Fucking auto-drive. Then he heard it. Beep. That means the door was open and it was waiting. He moved. Jumping out a window and rolling just to keep his momentum. He had to be a small target just to survive. He leapt into his car, practically jumping into the passenger seat. He was so desperate. His hands fumbled to push him into the driver's seat. He dropped his revolver just to grab the wheel, but then to his horror, the passenger door slid open. Standing there was a girl? A child? But no, not just a child, because that was a big fucking gun. Wait. Why? The sound deafened him as much as it blew him out of his own car. He came to weakly coughing up blood and he realized he had a hole in his chest. Phew, he couldn't even curse. Blood flowed out from his lungs. You just had to try to run. Note to self: Motoko. Kill them all without letting them realize what's happening. It makes this job so much easier. He heard the soft voice of the girl as she walked around the back of his ride. His attempts to talk were met with failure as he coughed blood that just didn't seem to stop. I was trying to find your rifle, you know? You shot me earlier with a rifle, and I wanted to repay the favor, but then I couldn't find it. It took so long. You ended up realizing what was going on. My mistake. I don't like playing with my prey, she said as she knelt beside him. She wasn't just holding a boya, she had his overture. All right. You've made me shoot this stupid thing enough. My arms are hurting. Well, I'm not one for letting someone suffer. Even a scav. Wraith. Same thing really. She commented simply as she raised his revolver. Oh. Shit. Stupid. Almost forgot. Stupid Motoko. She lowered his revolver, which made him want to gasp in relief, even if he realized he was dying. Too far for a hospital. No medical attention, and no one to do it anyways. She reached behind his neck and started forcing shards out of him manually. Phew, he gurgled again, wanting to tell this kid to fuck off. How did he get killed by a kid? He murdered girls like her before breakfast. There we go. She muttered, pulling out. That was his ride's key shard. I've been without wheels of my own for long enough, don't you think? She asked, waving it around before slotting it in. Instantly she raised his overture once again. Now I don't have to worry about damaging the shard. Goodbye. 750 XP gained. I nodded as I turned away from the corpse. I slipped into the Quadra-Type 66. The Reaver variant. It was a design that altered practically everything to make it a vehicle that can survive in the desert. But then again, it was still basically a muscle car. It looked, well, the base model was awesome, but this one looked a little worn. I shrugged. Still a car. Still cool. I quickly took control and reversed it back towards the gas station that had the underground basement. What kind of gas station had a basement? I had been looking for 20 minutes for Scorpion, only to find out there was a basement when the gonk I just flatlined had come up, probably looking for a snack or something. I was lucky I had been able to jump behind a cabinet as my danger sense alerted me to him coming up. Then of course he had subdermal armor, which made my Unity nothing but a pea shooter against him. Uck. I was really getting tired of dealing with people in armor. My wrist hurt. It wasn't broken, not this time at least. I could actually fire the boya without breaking my arm thanks to recoil reduction giving me some serious tips on saving my bones. But it still hurt. I shook my irritation away. Pulling up to the building, I jumped out and rushed downstairs. My limp was starting up again now that I wasn't in combat and the adrenaline and coolness flowed away. I was going home, taking a shower, and taking a nap. Right after I rescued Scorpion, I walked down the steps into the little basement section I hadn't known existed. I winced as I saw him. Scorpion looked bad. Hanging from the ceiling by his wrists, and it looked like they had worked him over bad. His face was a mess. Fuck Scorpion. They really took you apart. I told him as I approached, looking for the controls to drop him down. "Wazd?" He jerked awake a bit, looking up through only one eye that wasn't swollen shut, and I saw as he realized who was there, could see the shock in his eyes. "Motko? Nice to see you survived as well, chum. Come on, let's get you out of here. I don't suppose you know where the Aldercaldos are camped? You are gonna need some medical attention." I told him as I finally found the release for the chains and grunted as I did my best to slowly lower him, but it wasn't easy. He weighed a lot more than I did. Finally he was on the ground and he was looking at me like he had seen a ghost. "Come on now, Scorpion, no time for naps. Here, have this." I pushed a max stock I had found in the camp into his mouth, and after that at least he seemed more alert, even if it was obvious I was now on a time limit. He was bleeding bad. "Let's get you moving," I told him as I did my best to heft an arm over my shoulder, only to wince as he brushed against the gunshot wound. "Yep, that was still there. Use a shot." "Just a flesh wound," I assured him as I hauled him up and started dragging his weakly working legs. It was a struggle up the stairs, but I got him in the passenger seat and settled in myself. "Now Scorpion, where do I take you?" A few moments later his eyes shifted yellow, and I got a text. Coordinates I could use in my GPS. Cool. And with a nice purr that I could get used to, my new car rumbled to life and I hit the gas. Seriously, Scorpion needed a doctor. He looked like shit. He passed out on me during the drive, even as he moaned in his sleep at the rough terrain. Nothing I could do about that. The roads out here were more suggestions than anything. Still, having a GPS meant I could zone out and focus on everything that had happened. I had killed a lot of wraiths in that camp. 8 men had died without any alarm being sent. 8 men that I had murdered as quickly and completely as I could. My knife had seen a lot of work, but so had anything I could get my hands on. I was kinda proud, in a horrible way, of the screwdriver kill. That had been a tricky set of movements that I only barely managed to get through without anyone screaming. I looked through the stack of alerts and sighed. Street Brawler skill level up. 1 perk point gained. I guess the improvised weapon counted as brawling, and now I was at Street Brawling 5. Reflex leveled up. This must have happened early, because now that Reflex was at 5, my reflex skills got room to advance. Blades skill level up. 1 perk point gained. Blades had maxed out at 5 as well. I guess it made sense considering how many throats I had slit. But killing had repercussions. I had gained 4,750 XP for killing everyone in the compound. Level up achieved. 1 stat point gained. 1 skill point gained. And now I was level 5. I shivered a bit as I thought about what that meant, but also how awesome it felt. Gamer brain loved leveling. Motoko loved leveling too. I sighed. I liked murder. It was fun, challenging, thrilling. I pushed away the stat menu to focus on the road. Fine. I liked murder. I liked killing. But I liked killing bad people. That was the part that I could accept. I wasn't killing innocent people, and I wouldn't. I killed the worst sorts. The ones that prey on others. Just because I enjoyed it doesn't make me a bad person. It didn't. Pulling up to the Aldercaldos camp in a Raff and Shiv Wraith marked car might have been a bit. Well, I could have done it better. I had just been in a rush. But now I had an army of angry nomads all pointing rifles at my car as it came to a stop inside their camp. Probably should have stopped outside. But then again, Scorpion looked really bad. I turned off the engine, letting the nomads hear it die out as I popped open the door and slowly revealed my glove-clad hands, showing I didn't have a weapon in them. Not that it mattered. Quick Draw could handle that easily enough. Scorpion is in the passenger seat. He needs some medical attention. I called out once I was out of the car and the nomads could see me. It took a moment, but someone came up behind me, putting a gun against my back as they peeked into the car. Fuck. Get the door open. Scorpion needs help. A gravely voice called out behind me, and I just waited as a few nomads rushed up and opened the door and quickly started hauling their family member out of the car. You gave us all a scare, girl. The voice behind me said, although not unkindly. Yeah, sorry. Was in a bit of a rush. Scorpion passed out on the way over and it worried me. I could feel the gun removed from my back then, and most of the nomads lowered their weapons as well, although a few kept their guns aimed. I turned around to see a cowboy. Look, he had an overture and a cowboy hat. He was a cowboy. Motoko Kusanagi. Merc. I introduced myself as I slowly lowered my arms. Cassidy Nomad. Thanks for bringing Scorpion in. What happened? He asked in a drawl that I couldn't help but pay attention to. He had a nice voice. I sighed. Long story. I'm a merc, that Scorpion. Well, I'll let him tell that part. We got noticed by some Raffen, and chased down. They caused us to crash, and well, I couldn't kill all of them before they put a bullet in me. I gestured to my shoulder, which had the bandage bleed through a bit with all the work I had been doing. Need a ripper, least we could do for bringing back our boy? He asked, but was already sort of trying to guide me over. Guess looking like a kid did have some advantages. No. No thank you. I'll head back to the city. I have my own doc I trust. I countered instantly. I didn't want to get into that rabbit hole. It would just be easier to heal after a nap. Anyway, they left me for dead and took Scorpion. I bet you would have heard from them sometime soon asking for a ransom. Yep, likely, he said simply, although I could see he wanted to argue with me still, but I continued my story. Anyway, I tracked them down, took them out, and pulled Scorpion out. He gave me the codes for your camp. Here we are. I answered, of course, instantly glossing over everything that I had done, which Cassidy obviously noted. Well, thank you for pulling Scorpion out of a bad situation. We won't forget it, he said with the tip of his hat, and I shrugged. I was hired and contracted to be his security. It was my failure that left him captured in the first place. I waved off any appreciation for what I had done. Fuckers deserved it. I noticed, but didn't pay any attention to the man's raised eyebrow. Oh, here. I looked to him and felt my eyes go gold as I sent him a text. That's the camp I cleared. Might be useful to grab some stuff yourself. I know there were more vehicles parked in their garage, and I didn't get a chance to loot much once I noticed that Scorpion was in bad shape. I offered after the message went through. Mighty kind of ya, Cassidy agreed, looking me over again. You sure you don't want to see our doc? We don't have the best gear, but he is competent. It's a long drive back to the city. Nah. Other than the flesh wound, I'm fine. I told him, gesturing at the bloody hole in my shoulder. I could see that there were plenty of nomads listening in as we talked, and since I had passed on everything I felt like sharing, I gave him a final nod. Well, that's my job done. I'm outta here, I told Cassidy as I moved to slide back into my ride. Cassidy moved to stop me but didn't quite finish the action. You're an odd one, since you ain't accepting any help. Drive safely. The older Caldos will remember what you did for them today. He offered as he bent down to talk to me as I belted myself into the driver's seat. Thanks, Cassidy, but I just did a job. Nothing more. I answered as my new car came alive in a rumble. Cassidy pulled back and gave me room as I pulled out of the nomad camp. Too bad I hadn't seen Panam, she was cool. And I hadn't managed to loot the Raffen camp. I sighed, saving Scorpion was more important. And I was at least an hour away from the camp now. Might as well just drive home. Recover. Besides, I revved the engine a bit as I put my foot down. I got a nice bit of loot. I drove fast on my way home. The long roads let me absolutely gun my new car. Which is how I learned I got more driver experience driving fast. Which was cool. Halfway back to the city I got a driving level up, putting me at driver 3. Which was pretty helpful, because future cars were not the same thing as cars I am used to. At all. At least it was fast. I sailed over the dunes and into the city without any trouble as I pulled into the daily grind in the city. I got some looks as I drove through the streets. The side of the car was painted with wraiths after all. But as long as I wasn't pulled over I didn't care. I had sand in places I didn't want to have sand. Shower first. I pulled into the parking garage near our home and paid out a bit for a permit to actually park there. I took a moment once the car was off to just sigh and breath. I was home. Not dead. Job done. I rose and headed into the apartment, stopping to grab a snack from Mystery Meat Stick Guy as I headed inside. I knew I was getting looks. Sure, I had washed my face in the way house. but I still had blood caked to the side of my head, and I looked like I got in a fight with a dust devil. And lost. Everything was going to need to be washed after this. That and repaired. My poor Netrunner leotard was getting a little rough. I felt that small surge of hope as I entered the apartment looking around for June, only to find out once again he wasn't here. I sighed and walked into the bathroom. The first blast of water came off red and brown, and it took a minute before it started showing at least mostly clear. I checked out the bullet hole that went through my shoulder and winced. Yeah, that was bad. I was really glad I could recover with a nap. Otherwise I probably would have died. I can just imagine how much dust and grit got in the wound over the hour's trip through the dust storm. I shook it away. Nap first. Deal with my situation after. I woke up hungry. Made sense. I barely ate the day before and I had gone through some shit. I stretched as I slipped out of bed and groaned pleasantly when nothing ached. My leg was fine. My shoulder was spotless. I grabbed some clothes, wincing at how dusty my jacket was. I decided to leave that on the floor until I could give it a deeper clean. Instead I was wearing some older clothes as I slipped out of the apartment. I wanted ramen. I walked over to Cherry Blossom Market, down the stairs and slipped into a chair at the counter ordering what sounded best as I settled in for lunch. Figuring I might as well, I sent a text to Scorpion. Hope you're still alive. I did see the trailer with your bike at the Wraith compound. So if your people went and picked the area clean, you should at least have your preem ride. I was just stuffing some noodles into my mouth when I got a return text. Scorpion, still alive. Bike was secured. Bit of an awkward explanation about everything. Heard from Cassidy you left before you got patched up. You already get looked at? I'm preem. Gonna spend a bit of time taking it easy. Eating ramen right now. After I think I'll go home, put my feet up and enjoy the AC. Scorpion, you just had to say it. Joking aside, glad you're okay. Thank you. Really. Not a lot of people, mercs or not, would have come back to pull my ass out of that. I've seen the pictures of the rave camp. Wakako undersold you. If you ever need backup, call me. I owe you. Just doing my job. Scorpion, I'm alive. Not many Aldekaldos get to say that after getting captured by the Raffen. So again, thanks. I'll message Wakako that the gig is over. Also Saul wants to thank you. I passed him your number, so you might hear from him soon. Take it easy Motoko. Anytime. I left my last message back short as I slurped the last of my ramen. Dropped a little tip to the chef which earned me a bow as I headed back out. As much as I wanted to go do some more netrunning grinding, there was something I really couldn't put off anymore. Excuse me. Do you know where I could pick up some clothes patches and tools? And maybe some advice for fixing bullet holes? I asked one of the ladies selling self-adjusted clothes in the market, earning an odd look before I explained I was a merc. After that I got some brief explanations, and after a small loss of eddies I had everything I needed to do it myself. The lady even sat me down and started me on how to do it on some scrap cloth she had. I definitely overpaid for the equipment she gave me, but the instructions sped things up. It was definitely worth it when after a few minutes I got an alert. 100 crafting XP gained. I couldn't help but laugh, forcing myself to wave away the lady who had been helping me learn. I was in a cyberpunk world, but I was gonna get my first level because of sewing. Hilarious. I smiled as my attention refocused. Let's see what I could do once I get to crafting 1. I didn't quite make it. Practicing with old cloth and making stitches meant I wasn't getting alerts super fast. But the lady kept helping me out until she decided it was late and time to close up. I was only one more alert away. I sighed, thanked her and took my new tools back home. I had plenty of old clothes to mess with after all. Wakako Okada. Wakako had been a fixer in Night City for decades. She had seen it all. She had seen the fall of Arasaka Tower. Had been alive before the data crash. So when she sent out a young girl with a bit of potential out on a gig, it was mostly because Wakako needed someone rookie enough to handle a bodyguard job for low pay. Edgerunners didn't take bodyguard gigs for low pay. Bodyguard was one of the hardest jobs to do, especially when your client was running straight towards danger. Wakako hadn't lied when she said Motoko was her suggestion to take along. She just hadn't informed the man she was his only option. A rookie like her could do well on a job like this, long travel times, low pay, high risk. It was the perfect chance to teach the girl not to jump on every gig offered, and learn when to say no. Wakako wouldn't ever feel a connection with the girl. Wakako and Natasha's friction made that impossible. But Wakako was old. She wouldn't hold her mother against the girl. But this was out of her expectations. First came a text from Scorpion long after she should have gotten an update on the gig. Gig is finished. Here is the final pay. Wakako. Thank you. Motoko saved my life out there, and I know if you had sent me anyone else they wouldn't have bothered coming to my rescue. Make sure your girl is taken care of. Not many people would have walked into a Raffen Shiv camp alone to save someone. Wakako was a woman that knew things. It was half the job of a fixer. A good one anyways. So this created questions needing answers. Explanation is requested. Motoko hasn't contacted me yet. It took a while, and this time Wakako was tapping her fingernails along her desk. She was not used to being kept waiting, and even less used to waiting for something that actually sparked her interest. Then a bigger message came through. Full of images, but not just images. It looks like the Aldikaldos had looted the place to the bedrock, but also had poked into everything, doing the same thing Wakako was. Trying to figure out what had happened. Scorpion had even added in a file that he must have made after Wakako asked about what happened, a text document recounting his experience. To her amusement it read like an army report. She read it all, Scorpion's account. The images, the Aldikaldo scouts looking over the absolute carnage a Raffen Shiv camp had been left in. Wakako had to admit the sight of a man with a screwdriver in his ear in a room full of dead bodies gave her a feeling she didn't often have. She was impressed. Motoko had run into the sort of luck most solos pray never to find her mission going completely out of control. Yet the girl hadn't bailed out, hadn't given up, or even called in reinforcements, or even Wakako herself to update. She had just gotten up after being shot and hunted down a pack of Raffen scum. Motoko's first mission had given Wakako reason to give her some minor tasks. Going through a scav hideout had opened the girl up for more dangerous moves. This job had been a test, to see if she was worth giving any trust. A fixer needed to trust a solo can do the job. A solo needed to trust the fixer not to screw them over. It was a relationship, and it was important. Wakako had been throwing the girl a bone with barely any attention, because she didn't expect anything from her. She had seen 1,000 Motoko Kusanagis. 1,000 young men or women that came to her looking for work. Some even with a modicum of skill or potential. But this? This altered Wakako's entire understanding of Motoko Kusanagi. That was unacceptable. Wakako prided herself on knowing who she had working for her. So she sent out a message. Gig closed. Confirmation from the client they are very happy. I have questions. Come to my office. So I was heading into Wakako's office wearing a new bandage that I had bled on a bit from the inside to pretend to still be injured. Damn it, I hadn't expected Wakako to want a face-to-face. I slipped into her office making sure to keep my arm rigid as I had it in a homemade sling. Wakako. Motoko. Sit. The older woman demanded as she looked me over with sharp eyes. I've heard about your gig from everyone but you. Explain. Sorry, I was taking a nap after getting checked out. I got shot, you know? I offered, trying to defend myself. I'm aware. Next time message me when a gig is finished regardless. It was foolish to go back after him. You do realize that, don't you? Wakako asked me as she put out a cigarette into an ashtray. No. I see that you don't. Taking a mission for 2,000 eddies isn't the sort of job you should be risking your life on. I was hired to protect him. So I did. I mumbled a bit. Not sure what else to say. I had a job to do, so I did it. I see. You will end up used up until you die then. That is your future if you keep going down that path, but you are your own person. Do as you like. Until you end up dead in some blaze of glory though, I will use you. Congratulations, Motoko Kusanagi. You are no longer someone I consider a minor agent. I will have work for you. Dangerous work. But work that will leave you with more than 2,000 eddies for risking your life. Oh, thanks. The older woman chuffed at my response as she looked me over. One last thing, I need to know what you can do if I am going to set you up on jobs. You've used stealth to your advantage. The scavs, and now the Raven. If I asked you to sneak into a highly secure building, could you do it? I don't know. Maybe. I guess it depends on how fast you need it done. She waves me off. It's not a real gig. But I need to know if your talents lay in espionage more than combat. You hacked into the Raven's security. Uploaded a demon. A nasty one too from my reports. I hesitated, not sure how to explain how a rookie netrunner like me has something so good. Demons were weird. No, don't explain, you don't have to. From everything I have heard, you made it through the whole camp without alerting anyone until the end. Could you do that with a corporate factory? An office? An apartment building? I realized Waikoko wasn't asking for details. She wasn't asking for my stats. She was asking if I had faith in my own abilities. Yes. I am confident in my stealth. I'm good at it. I assured her, showing every ounce of confidence I could convey. I'll keep an eye out for a job for someone with those skills. If you can accomplish it. I don't have anyone with that skill set under my employ currently. Prove you have what it takes and I will have more work than you can ever accomplish for you. I will. Good. Rest. Recover. I will be in touch soon. She offered before waving me away. I slipped out of the chair and left feeling pretty good. Stealth missions could be fun.